Oh yeah, I that it's like a form of therapy unto itself. I'm a very anxious person and I kind of have a very hard time focusing and being present. And so I'm either worried about something that happened or something that's about to happen. And once I started jujitsu, you really don't have time to think about anything but the current moment because if you do, you're going to get choked out.
Yeah.
So it's been great. I've been going. It's going to be 6 months pretty soon, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And like the first few weeks, I really wanted to. I was like, why did I commit to? Why did I do this? What am I doing to myself? Because I'm about to turn 40 and like I'm not the most physically active, which is why I wanted to do it. I didn't really want to get a gym membership. I wanted to do something where there's like a social element to it as well.
Mm.
Because at the moment I have quite a bit of free time now that I've exited metal injection. So I figured this would be a good way to spend it, and it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself.
You're now listening to the RRPG podcast.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the RRBG podcast. Today, I'm being joined by my good buddy here, co-founder of Metal Injection, current host of Knotfest's Wrestling. The We're Not Wrestlers. Is that is that how you say it?
Squirt Circle Pit
Squared Circle
is
Pit.
the
Sorry. Are they still doing We're Not Wrestlers? Is that thing?
no, they're not.
They're not doing that anymore. Well, current host of Squared Circle Pit, Mr. Robert Pasbani. How are you, brother?
Chilling.
Did I say your
And
last name right? Pasbani?
you nailed it. You nailed it.
Pasbani. It sounds almost Italian. Pasbani.
Yeah, it's really Pasbani, like it's an S sound instead of a Z, but I prefer the Z sound to give it a more of an Italian vibe.
Yes, you are from New York area, yes?
That's correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
born and raised in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. I mean, how different is Brooklyn now to when you were a child? Because I'm also from that area. I'm born in New Jersey and spent a
Mhm.
lot of time in Brooklyn and the Bronx going to Yankee games, and it used to be like a run for your life type of situation. It's not like that anymore.
I don't know if I ever had to run for my life particularly. I actually grew up by Coney Island. That's I lived on Brighton
Ah.
Beach, uh, but it is crazy going to Coney Island now and how it's essentially like Disney Light
Mm.
compared to just you like back in the day. Actually, Coney Island was pretty dangerous, and you were just told to stay away from there. And really all you could do there was go and get like bootleg video games. There'd be a lot of vendors. Actually, I remember in Requiem for a Dream, there's a nice scene early on in the movie where the lead character played by Jared Leto tries to pawn off his mom's television set, and that's a really good look at what Coney Island, like how I remember Coney Island compared to now. It's obviously, yes, much more gentrified, much more expensive than when I grew up. It's interesting because I feel like growing up in Brooklyn, uh, or growing up in South Brooklyn, really, it felt like living's almost in a suburb of New
Mm.
York City. Like the city was within reach, but so far away that it's not like right around the corner. It's a commitment to go there.
Yeah.
So I kind of, even though I grew up in the city, I feel like I grew up in a very odd kind of suburban part of this. Even like I lived in an apartment growing up. I didn't even have a house, so it's not really that suburban. But just the vibe was much more chill than you would expect from a traditional, stereotypical New York City living.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like I said, I spent most of my time in New Jersey, but I did go to New York a lot. Brooklyn was okay, like it wasn't that bad, but the Bronx was like the problem. Like we would go.
Yeah, I
It,
never hung out. The
yeah.
Bronx was literally on the complete other side of the city for me. So I only made it to the Bronx. Like I was never a Yankee fan, so I never went there.
So you're a
I'm a
Mets
Mets
guy,
guy.
Mets
I am
guy.
a Mets guy. So yeah, I was never really I avoided most of the shadier parts of New York City growing up, I would say.
I just remember being a little kid and having to from where we would park the car to get to where we were getting into the stadium. It was literally like my father grabbing my hand and us running like as fast as we could through the homeless and the people yelling and like people trying to scalp tickets, but also scalp your head. Like it was kind of fucking crazy. Yeah, man. Dude, so I've known you for a few years now, but not a whole lot. And I know, and we've crossed paths before we started actually talking and like getting to know each other a little bit more. But you've been, a pioneer in the metal scene for a long time, and we both share our love for metal, but also wrestling, which I think that's where we actually started connecting more was with the wrestling because we kept running into each other at wrestling shows.
Yeah, definitely.
And I hate to start the show on a sad note, but it's been on my head in my head all day today and yesterday. But the passing of Wyndham Rotunda Bray Wyatt has like really fucked me up, man. Really, really.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a real bummer, especially like I was already mourning like Terry Funk
Terry.
dying.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I was still processing that because I'm such a big Terry Funk fan, and then I saw the news about Bray Wyatt, and I was stunned. Just because with Terry Funk, it wasn't a surprise really, just because you knew his health wasn't too good, and he
Older.
lived a full life.
Yeah.
With Bray Wyatt, it's a complete shock just because he's younger than I am. So
Yeah.
that's very hard for me to process, especially knowing he has young kids. And I just feel like he left so much to do on the table. Like there was still so much more potential with the characters that he was building that it's a real bummer that we're never going to see that. And also just seeing like all the wrestlers and their tributes. Like, I only really have like a sort of parasocial relationship with Wyndham Rotunda. I interviewed him briefly one time, but other than that, I don't know him personally. But it's very touching to see how close he was to a lot of people all over the wrestling industry.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm similar to you where it's not, I don't know him that personally, but it hit me like a close friend, and I think it's due to the connection that I made with him, and I think that he made with a lot of folks like you and I, where not just wrestling fans, but he had that edgier kind of metal dude vibe that he's like one of our kind. You know what I mean? It's hard to you don't see that very often in pro wrestling. We have a few here or there that fit that mold, but he was somebody that connected with not just in the looks, but the way he spoke and speaking, especially like his comeback when he was talking a lot about mental health and being there for each other. Like my and this probably speaks more to my mental health, but when I heard the news, I immediately went dark. Like, oh my God, I really hope it wasn't mental health issues, because there was a little bit of vagueness around what illness he was dealing with. They didn't really outright say like, oh, he's having heart trouble, which we found out later that's why he passed, exacerbated heart problems due to COVID and all that stuff. But my brain immediately went to the dark side. It went to, oh no, I know he's been dealing with depression for, the loss of Brody and probably, creative frustrations at his job and whatnot. So immediately my brain was like, please let it not be what I think it is.
Yeah, I had no idea. That was the other thing. Like until the news came out, I was completely in the dark about that as well. And it's sad to see what it was, because also just hearing a few weeks ago that, oh, like he's getting better and they're already starting to talk about ways to reintroduce him, and then hearing this was just very tragic.
Yeah, man. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about mental health and that kind of thing, because like I said, it's been messing with me, and like I don't like that my brain immediately went to someplace that dark, and it's something that I think a lot of people that listen to metal or are into our type of lifestyle can associate to, where we deal with a lot of fucked up shit in our society and whatnot, and parents and a plethora of issues that could be. But I do feel like as a community, we kind of suffer together in that whole mental health realm. Like, how is your mental health doing these days?
I'm pretty level.
Yeah.
I have ups and downs, but yeah, I've absolutely been focusing a lot more on it. And I think one thing that not enough people talk about is that, if you do find yourself constantly in a state of depression or anxiety or stress, there's nothing wrong with seeking help and talking to somebody, and specifically a professional. Like, there's only so much advice your friends can give,
Yeah.
and so much of your shit that they can listen to. But truthfully, they're dealing with their own shit too. So you like it's a bit. It sometimes feels like a bit of a burden, but speaking to a professional consistently can very much help. It's helped me a lot. I am in therapy, and it's great. It could be very difficult, but I've learned so much about myself and why I react to certain things the way I do, and how to avoid, certain triggers and certain behavioral patterns that I'm not too fond of. So yeah, I think everybody should be in therapy.
Well,
Personally.
if you don't mind talking about it, like what are some of those things that you noticed about yourself that you wanted to change, that pushed you towards like getting into therapy? Because I recently started therapy, and I'm having a hard time with it because of my upbringing. You know, Latinos typically don't care about mental health issues. They don't think it's real, or they'll just call you a pussy or whatever it is. So I'm now like I'm trying to push through it, because it, to me, in my brain, it just goes to like, I don't know what this is doing for me. So what is it that you noticed and that pushed you into therapy, and has that changed, and how has that changed?
Well, what kind of I it's something I wanted to do for a while, and I just had a bit of a rough patch mentally, uh and I just figured now's the time to do it. And uh I would advise you don't need to wait until you're until you're at a low point. You can do it even, it's not like, I don't just talk about sad things or things that bother me. I share happy things, and I think the most important thing is to go into it and be as honest as possible. Because if you're like lying or leaving stuff out, it's only harming you. Like, you're only preventing yourself from growing. And uh, as for one thing I learned about myself without getting too vulnerable,
Yeah.
I would say is that I try to, like, to your point about like how growing up in a household where feelings were dismissed, I very much would dismiss feelings that I had and try to like logically explain to myself why a
Mm,
certain thing was happening, and that would then result in poor behavior down the line. And just kind of working through that and talking a lot about childhood and stuff like that has definitely changed how I go about certain things.
for sure, man. And I'm assuming that I've noticed that been doing jujitsu. I assume that that's helping as well.
Oh yeah, I that it's like a form of therapy unto itself. I'm a very anxious person, and I kind of have a very hard time focusing and being present. And so I'm either worried about something that happened or something that's about to happen. And once I started jujitsu, you really don't have time to think about anything but the current moment, because if you do, you're going to get choked out.
Yeah.
So it's been great. I've been going. It's going to be 6 months pretty soon, and it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And like the first few weeks, I really wanted to. I was like, why did I commit to? Why did I do this? What am I doing to myself? Because I'm about to turn 40, and like I'm not the most physically active, which is why I wanted to do it. I didn't really want to get a gym membership. I wanted to do something where there's like a social element to it as well.
Mm,
Because at the moment I have quite a bit of free time now that I've exited metal injection. So I figured this would be a good way to spend it, and it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself. I lost 20 pounds. I'm
nice.
like I have it's like I've there's like the confidence that you gain from going and like feeling yourself, understanding what's happening, and getting better and figuring out certain defense techniques. And yeah, if you're a wrestling fan and you want to do something physical and the gym isn't for you, like for me, I just, again, like my attention is everywhere. So I would just get distracted by my thoughts at the gym. And since there's no one to like I didn't go with a personal trainer or anything. I would just get distracted and not really do my workouts. But
Mm-hmm.
with this, it's something where, it's a group setting. Everyone at my gym is really cool. I made a bunch of friends, and because there's other people around, it's less of a distraction, and you really have to focus, or you get fucked up.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because pair you off with someone to kind of work on stuff. Like when I used to go in Florida with Jeff from Poison the Well for a bit, and we would just pair off and do like weird things that kind of seem silly, but it actually helps. Like trying to hit each other with our belts and trying to just work on our footwork and like avoid backing away and then going in and just working on footwork and just even that like you can't focus on anything else. You can't get distracted because you're gonna get smacked in the face with a belt. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would say trust the process as well. That's another thing I learned doing jujitsu and therapy as well, is just like, oh, like sometimes you're gonna feel like, oh, things aren't getting anywhere, but then like a week or two go by and suddenly everything starts to click, or certain things start to click. Like everything is never gonna click,
Right.
but little things start to click, and you notice your progress, and that's been very fruitful for me.
That's awesome, man. That's good to hear. Tell me a little bit about the departure with Metal Injection, man. Co-founder. You were there for how many years? I mean, when did that start?
18.
18
Started
years.
in 2004, actually. January 1st, 2004 is when we launched. I came up with the idea. I was stoned in a basement watching a public access show, and it was just like, oh, we could do this. Oh, why don't we do this? That kind of thing. And then linked up with Frank and a bunch of people, and then we just started doing it. And it was just a hobby at first. I took broadcasting in college before I dropped out. And I was always just interested in broadcasting in general, a lot also from pro wrestling as well. And I just always wanted to do it. And there really wasn't a lot of coverage of heavy metal at the time. 2004 is before YouTube. And so it seemed like a fun hobby, a fun way to apply my interests. And then, much like I was just saying with jujitsu, little by little, we started learning things and refining things, and it started becoming something cool. And the scene was kind of small enough where we made a dent pretty quickly and just kind of built on that. And the longer we stuck around, the more our reputation grew and got legit. And after about 5 years, it became a full-time job. Basically, we met up with the Metal Sucks guys and talked about figuring out a way to work together. Like, should we merge? Should we whatever? And then we both, both of our sides were like, oh, well, we kind of like, who would be whose boss? That would be weird. So we just figured out, well, we don't need to do that. We just, so we started an ad network and figured like that's the area of the business that we can work on together. And so I started doing advertising, like selling advertising as well. It was quite a learning process of learning how to code, learning how to do marketing, hosting, all this stuff. And it was really fun. And it, took all of my energy. Like I had a full-time job before Metal Injection working at a design firm. And I honestly, half the time I was just working on Metal Injection. They were paying me to work on Metal Injection. And then I would just get all my stuff in at the deadline. And then once we started doing it full time, it was almost like a whole new learning process of, again, there's no one over your shoulder to be like, are you doing your work? You have to have the discipline of doing it. So I had to create a regimen and whatever. And long story short, like it was going great. Business was going great, but like it just felt for me like I was kind of done with it and I needed to move on. And an opportunity presented itself where allowed me to move on in a very in a way that was beneficial for everyone. So I took it, and it's been a good break for me since then. That was in last January. It's been a nice break to kind of figure out what I want to do.
And that opportunity is Knotfest, right? The whole squared circle pit with Knotfest. Is that the opportunity you mentioned that presented itself, or is it something else?
Oh no, that happened after.
Okay.
Well, I can't really, like, because of certain things that I say I can't
NDAs.
exactly. Yeah, I can't exactly talk about. But I just mean like what an opportunity to exit metal injection, not
Right,
having
right,
to
right.
do with Knotfest.
Okay.
And then just I was just hanging around and thinking about like what I wanted to do, and I the other thing about metal is because I was doing it as my job, it just felt like my job, so it stopped being
Mm.
my hobby. And wrestling has always been my hobby, but like it very much took that mantle again, especially because things were getting hot and I was really enjoying it. And I was able to travel last year. I went to all but one AEW pay-per-view and saw like 10 live shows and all that stuff. So yeah, I was like, oh, I want to do stuff with wrestling. And then an opportunity presented itself with Knotfest on a much smaller scale. Like this is a very part-time thing. And they liked the Squared Circle Bit podcast, which I started in metal when I was in Metal Injection.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I took that with me though. And they were like, yeah, well, we'd love to host it. And they've been a cool partner to allow me to just keep doing that, which is just talk to cool people about pro wrestling.
Oh yeah, and I appreciate you having me on there. I think we did New Japan predictions at one point.
Yeah, we did a
Yeah.
Forbidden Door
Forbidden
preview
Door.
show.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of that, we have freaking what they're calling the biggest pro wrestling event in history. Which settle down. I love AEW, but like, come on, the biggest pro wrestling event in
I
pro
mean, it's marketing.
history.
What are they going to say? The second biggest?
Yeah.
They got to come strong.
The mediumest event of all.
One of the 5 biggest wrestling shows of all time. Like that doesn't sound good.
I
They got to
know.
say something. They got to say something. Nice.
Yeah, no, I hear that. But that's cool, man. I mean, there were so many things going through my head as you were mentioned, like going through that story of like, when you find yourself in a situation where you want to do something, like when you guys were like, oh, we could do that. Like when you were watching the show, there is a thin line between like, I don't know. It's a difficult topic because I am always of the frame of mind of do the things you want to do, push yourself to achieve those dreams you have. But there's also some people that where they're I guess delusional, where like it's too much of a dream, where you can't get there. But who am I to tell someone not to do that? So it's always interesting to me when I see people say, "Fuck that, I'm gonna go do it myself."
Yeah, you need a little bit of delusion. Like I actually found an old journal that I kept from when I started Metal Injection, and it was so embarrassing to read. But I'm glad I was embarrassed. Like I would hope reading something I wrote, almost 20 years ago, I'd be embarrassed by it. But just my delusions of like what could happen with the success of Metal Injection, and just thinking like that's not how that works, you idiot. Like you just don't know. But you need a little delusion to kind of give you the motivation, because what else is there? Because you're not making any money, you're not getting any, there has to be something there to drive you initially, because it's going to suck. It's going to suck a lot at first, and you really just have to keep, like, consistency is the only thing that will get you ahead. And really there is a bit of reality to it, because you have to like look back, like, okay, I've been doing this for 6 months. Has there been any growth? If you are seeing growth, if you're seeing potential for growth, then keep going.
Yeah.
If you're at the same place or worse with your project, then maybe you need to take a step back and reassess what's working, what's not working. Could this realistically happen? Is this a waste of my time? Should I be dedicating myself to something else, and go from there? But really, your only competition is yourself, and how much you're willing to put into it, and how much time you have to do it.
Yeah, that's the other big one. I've been fortunate, I guess, that I've been able to keep a day job that'll pay the bills while also having enough time to work on this show and everything else that I try to do. But it's challenging in that sense where, you do it for a certain amount of time and you start to think, like you said, like, is this worth my time? Like, what am I doing? And then also the aspect of it becoming work, like nothing I wanted more than to sit around and interview people. And then once you get yourself in a situation where you're doing it weekly or on a schedule, like, then it becomes work, and then it becomes not as interesting, or not as appealing. Maybe not interesting, but not as appealing.
It becomes burdensome.
Yeah,
basically, because it's like, yeah, you like talking to people, but you don't like having to think about booking guests and contacting them and scheduling it and all that stuff, and then like editing and creating social media assets and all that stuff is not the fun stuff, but you have to do it to enable yourself to be able to do the fun moment. And yeah, like before metal injection was full time, I was working 2 jobs. I was doing my full time job that paid me, and then metal injection, another 6 hours a day, just doing that. Like when I got home, I would just work on metal injection, and like that was my like nighttime routine. I don't even know if I have that kind of motivation now. Like if I wanted to start something, I don't know if I would be able to do it. It's very much a young man's game.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and a young man's game, and I would say an ambitious man's game, or dreamer type of game, because
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that I talk to from high school that they're like, how do you do life? Like, how do you have time for all the shit you're doing? I'm like, because I want to, and they don't have that. And I've come to realize that. Like, I try to push all my like, come on, man, you got to follow your dreams and do the things. But some people don't even have dreams. They're just like, I just want to fucking live.
Some people's dreams are just to chill. Some people's
Yeah,
dreams are just be able to have a comfortable job and go, and that's fine.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's totally cool.
Yeah, I have. That's one thing I've been working on with therapy, is that, like, stop pushing people so much, because sometimes I push people way too much to do their own thing, or to like follow dreams that they don't even have. I don't know, but I need to be able to accept the fact that some people are just cool, chilling. I have a wife and kid. We're good. I don't
Yeah,
need
you
all
don't.
that.
You can only control your own behavior. You can't control others.
Yeah, for sure. So now, I mean, on your LinkedIn, it says temporary retirement and looking for a new challenge. What do you think that looks like for you? What I know that you're still kind of searching, but like what is something that you think would pull you in?
Um, I don't. That's the answer that I'm seeking.
Mm.
I've
Well,
really been enjoying doing wrestling stuff. I enjoy doing hosting. I'd love to do more hosting stuff, be it podcasts or live events or whatever. And yeah, I think that in general, but also I feel like I do kind of miss doing marketing. Like I enjoyed building up the metal injection brand a lot, and the challenges that came with that, and how to tackle those challenges. Like that was the fun part of it. Like the stuff what stopped what made it not be fun was just the day-to-day news cycle, and like writing news and keeping up with the news, and having to tailor it in a certain way so people click on the story. And it became so like it was just a whole bummer all around. And then people get upset at you, and then it's just like relax, everyone relax. So I wanted to remove myself from that aspect of it, because all that took up so much time that it didn't allow me to do stuff that I enjoy doing, which is like coming up with marketing plans and stuff like that. So if I do want to get back into the rat race of the full-time world, I think I would seek something like that. But I would love to have uh a situation where I could get like a hosting gig or something, but I know that's easier said than done, and also requires a lot of work. And another thing I've been working on is getting the motivation for that.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard. And like you mentioned, the whole, like, do you find yourself not even wanting to listen to metal these days, like just because you're so saturated with it? And 'cause I'm sure, I mean,
Yeah, like I've certainly listened to a lot less of it than
yeah.
when I was doing it full time. Yeah, like I don't really seek out that much metal anymore. Friends send me stuff, I'll certainly listen to it. I went to like a slam show last week, or 2 weeks ago, with Sanguis Isabog and
Mm.
their tour, which was really great. It was in Long Island. It was nice, but very, there's some bands like I'm always going to catch Meshuggah when they come around, because they're my favorite. But as far as stuff I'm listening to, like I've really just been getting into stuff like industrial stuff or synthwave or stuff like Cold Cave, more
Mm.
gothy than metal at the moment. And yeah, like again, there's certain, Metallica came around, I went to see
Oh,
them,
of
and it was
course.
great. And I knew every word, but like, at the same time, yeah, I'm just kind of exploring other music at the moment. It's just fun to kind of see where my tastes take me.
Yeah, yeah, it's important to be open to it. Like, generally, you would say that I'm a metalhead. Like, most people that don't know me well enough will just say, yeah, he's just a metalhead kid or whatever, or a hardcore kid or into that world. But I'm grateful that I actually grew up in a like Hispanic household, so I got a lot of like salsa and merengue. I got a lot of jazz and
Yeah.
even disco shit.
I
Like
love freestyle. Like growing up in New York, you couldn't
oh yeah,
avoid the
Diamond
freestyle.
Girl.
Yeah, exactly. Just like on beatboxes, and I just heard a song like a few years ago, and I was like, oh, like it just brought me back to my childhood, and ever since then, I've just been diving into various freestyle stuff because it's so great.
Yeah, that's one
Yeah,
thing.
there's so much great music out there.
That's one thing I dealt with like growing up. Just the weird stigma of like wanting to be, not wanting to be, but being a part of like the metal kids, and then like having to be like, hey, but have you heard the song Maria? Maria, like you get this like self conscious shit where like, oh, I don't want them to think I'm a weirdo because I listen to this. Like growing up now and being an adult, I'm like, fuck you guys, I listen to whatever I want and it's awesome. And
Yeah.
a lot of people though don't have that. They feel ashamed, like especially Latinos, like they feel weird listening to rock music because they think it's satanic or outside of their realm. Like they should stick to just salsa or merengue music, and it's like, no, man, branch out.
Don't Latinos love the devil?
I mean,
are they fans of El Diablo?
I mean,
I like to say that there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure. If you like a song, you shouldn't feel guilty about it.
yeah, for sure.
Excuse me, unless it's Imagine Dragons, then you should feel guilty. But otherwise, no. Even if it's Imagine Dragons, if you like it, you like it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a very subjective thing.
I gotta thank WWE for allowing me to break free of the I hate Bad Bunny thing. Like I've always in my head was like, fuck that, I hate reggaeton and that guy sucks. And then like seeing him perform, seeing like even I think what did it was actually him coming out in Puerto Rico for that event and hearing the music and seeing the crowd. I was like, oh, it like clicked. Like, all right, I'm good.
That was a very cool moment. I was really into that as well. And I looked up that song after and it was stuck in my head for 2 weeks. Like I'm not the biggest Bad Bunny fan, but I respect very much what he's doing. And they're like the songs that I have heard are really great. And, I think it's really cool that Puerto Rico has a big star like that kind of representing for them.
Yeah. I recently turned a page on Post Malone with his newest album because like I never was a fan. I don't like the face tattoos. I didn't like the look. I didn't like the auto-tuning rap. None of that. But then I saw like one of his newer songs, something about chemicals, and I was like, oh, this is different. Has this always been this way? And I've just been, with blinders or... And I kind of did a little bit of a dive, and no, he still did a lot of shitty stuff that I didn't like, but some of the new stuff is actually good, and I can't, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna hate anymore. That's one thing I've been trying to do more of too, is for my own mental health, hate less,
Yeah, I agree. It's just a waste of energy for yourself.
Yeah, I still hate CM
Use
Punk.
That energy for some.
I'm just kidding. Oh man, so okay. Sorry, I keep coughing. I told you I've been dealing with a freaking weird lung infection, and now it's even scarier, like taking more COVID tests because there's rumors of another variant and another pandemic coming. I'm just like, I don't want it, I don't want to deal with it, but we got to be careful, I guess. I don't know. Now that I've gotten back into the full swing of going to live shows and we're back to normal, and now this again, like, I really hope we don't end up in another situation where things get locked down. I don't think we'll make it past another lockdown like that.
I don't think we will. I don't think there will ever be another lockdown. I don't think there's no even indication that there would be. Like, why would you even think that?
Well, no, they're
never going to do it.
They're talking about it in Canada and shit. They're mask mandates and all this stuff. Like they're freaking out.
Well, a mask mandate is not a lockdown.
No, I know, but that's the beginning steps. Like, you start with that, and then eventually they'll be like, well...
I just don't see it. I'm surprised even that the first lockdown happened, like that they got away with it. Not that they got away with it, that like people listen. No one's going to listen if they do it,
I feel that way. Everybody's over it now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not going to happen. And also at that time, there were no vaccines. Nobody even knew what the disease was. There's a lot more, like you could take over, there's medicine you can give people if they have COVID now. There's antibiotics, so it's much further along. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bummer though. I think the pandemic really affected us, like talking about mental health, like affected the whole nation. Like I think
Oh
that's why
yeah.
everybody like has a lot of unchecked uh feelings with how the pandemic affected them. Me in general, I feel like I lost a lot of stamina after the pandemic, or I would argue that we might still even be in the pandemic. But I did get COVID like a very late into it after I'd already been vaccinated and whatever, and it was a bit of a journey to fight out of it. But in general, I just, I'm not as spry as I was.
Yeah.
Could also be getting older.
Yeah, there's that element to it. I think I got it right before it happened at NAM, 2019, I
Yep.
think it was. And I after NAM, I mean, every time I had gone to NAM, I would get super sick after, like the
Well, there was always the
anthrax.
joke of, yeah, the anthrax.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's already such a petri dish of diseases being in that fucking poorly, poorly, air conditioned uh, area. So I can imagine with COVID, it's much more risky.
and I was a psycho, walking around. I had flasks, that I was sharing with people because I'd go to their booths and, hey man, you want some whiskey? And we were just sharing flasks or like pens with weed. And eventually it's got to catch up to you, whether there's a
Mhm.
pandemic or not. Like, you're going to get sick from all that. But yeah, I was out for like 2 weeks with every symptom that COVID had, like no taste, no smell, body aches and lethargic. I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was drowning. And then like a few months later, this whole shit happened. And like you were saying, people dealing with a lot of feelings, and so it manifests differently in other people. Like, some people are angry about it. They're the ones yelling at people with masks and calling them sheep and whatnot, and they take it the aggressive route. I got really fucking, like, that was probably the lowest point of my life in terms of depression. Like, I've had a lot of loss, family that has passed away, and heartbreaks and whatnot. But when we were like peak pandemic, and everybody was doing live stream concerts and all this shit, like, my brain just shut down. Like, oh, this is it. This is it. This is us turning into that weird sci-fi, like living in a TV screen, and we're never going to a concert again. I think it was, and I've said it before on the show, it was Tesseract's live stream. That when I was watching it, I'm like, I'm never gonna see this live again. All right, am I? Like, my brain just gave up, and I just started crying. And so that was one of the peak moments of like turning us into, I guess, focus on our mental health. Like, I think it's very important. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big turning point for me as well, where I realized that was another reason why I was like, oh, I really should talk to somebody.
Yeah, man. So, have you had any thoughts of like doing music since you're so heavily involved? Like, have you been in bands? Have you done that?
I've never been in bands. I have been thinking about doing music because I've been getting into house music.
Oh,
We're gonna get
right.
like go through the goth stuff, just like I started with industrial, like the Nine Inch Nails, another one of my all times, and then Rammstein, and then kind of digging deeper with like Ministry and Skinny Puppy and Frontline Assembly and bands like that, and then I was doing more like the new wave, like Devo and Gary Newman, and then I just wanted to kind of like go back to like I feel sometimes I have an obsessive personality where if I enjoy something, I want to consume as much knowledge as I can about it in a short amount of time. Like I just want to know everything about it immediately.
Yeah.
So I just kept going back, back, back. And then I'm like, how did house music even start? Like how did this whole thing start it? And so I just started watching documentaries and getting into it. And I think there's a very punk element to the original house music because there were just a bunch of DJs that would play records and they knew what people would respond to. So they just wanted to make one song with all the best parts of all the best records that they spun. And that's the thing. The first house songs were made by DJs who only made one song because they didn't have the musical ability. They were just,
Mhm.
party
Piecing
promoters
stuff
basically.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just, yeah, it's like cut and pasting. And then the actual musicians came in after and were like, oh, I see what they're doing, but here's the technique that they're trying, like let me whatever. So all that was really exciting. And I do not know how to play any instrument. I took some classes in high school, but I don't remember any of that stuff. And I never really had too much of a desire to learn an instrument. It just seemed like too daunting of a task. So, but I would be curious about doing a very lo-fi kind of electronic bedroom project kind of thing, but not even like anything serious, like more just for me,
Mhm.
just to have a creative outlet and just to learn how to use like an 808 machine and stuff like that stuff is piquing my interest at the moment.
For sure. I mean, that's kind of how I started. It's kind of reversed for me for when I before I started the band. I was just at home playing with like programs and trying to make sounds happen. Because my youth, I spent actually going to a lot of like goth clubs, and I've kind of since the I guess I don't know 2010 or so, I kind of fell out of that world. But I used to go there in Miami. There was a goth night, kitchen club would happen every, I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday, and I would go, and it was kind of at first it started kind of like a not a joke, but just my buddies would be like, "Hey man, you guys want to check out this creepy club? It's pitch black and there's one strobe light, and it's just fucking Assemblage 23 or Covenant or VMV Nations, and just blasting with one strobe light." And it was just something unique to go look at. But then I just kind of fell in love with it. And I was going every week, and then eventually started, doing the dancing and whatnot. But do you know if, like, have you been to some of those clubs?
No, I have not. I have not seeked out in the physical realm. I totally missed all the goth stuff here because I was a total dork. I never went to Batcave or Limelight. I went to Limelight, but like very late.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I never really got into the goth scene until much later because growing up, I was very much a new metal guy, and I was totally like what you were saying earlier of trying to prove my not poserness to everyone. So even though like I enjoyed freestyle and Celine Dion, and I loved hip hop. I never really was ashamed of liking. I don't think in New York you really had to hide that you
Right.
liked hip hop just because everyone was so accepting of it. And but like I didn't like Ja Rule. But yeah, so I was very much into like the new metal, and then when the metalcore stuff happened, I was all about that, and just like all the hardcore stuff here on the East Coast, and like stuff like Dillinger and all those bands. So I never really got into the goths. Like I didn't really even like. I don't want to say I didn't like, but like I didn't get obsessed with Typo Negative until my 30s, and so and all the gossip.
Mm.
So it's been a much older discovery for me. So I missed the wave of it here in New York when it was happening.
Nice. Yeah, I caught I missed the wave. If like I
Mhm.
was into it, and then I realized it could just be me that I fell out of it. But I did try and go to a couple like goth nights, and it just didn't feel the same. It had lost something to me. I don't know, but I do miss that. And a little bit of a change of subject, kind of, but not really. You mentioned that you have an obsessive personality. I find that I am the same way. Obviously, you can see I have like I collect shit. Like whenever I fall in love with something, I just collect all of it. I get all the records, I get the merchandise and all the things. But then I also take it that step further of like with music. I like being involved. I want to interview the people. I want to learn everything about them. I want to be behind the scenes. And that happens with everything that I enjoy. Like with video games, I ended up working at a video game company for 5 years because I just wanted to learn so much about it. Wrestling, like I go to all the indie shows and be a part of it. But it also kind of takes me into that mentality of it's work. Like I've gone too far to where the magic is gone. Like it's not like with pro wrestling, I have a hard time just being a fan because now when I go to an indie show, I'm more concerned about the spots going well and people's health and well-being and making sure the entrance went well and the music's playing. Like my brain just switches into production mode instead of just being a fan and enjoying it. Do you find yourself falling into that trap sometimes?
If I know what you're talking about, but I catch myself and I'm just like, well, that's not my problem.
Right,
Like I'm not here,
right.
I'm not here to deal with that. I'm here to just enjoy the show. In general, like with wrestling, I did overexpose myself to it, in the sense of like Like I remember after WrestleMania weekend in particular this year in LA, I was just like, all right, I need a few days off, like, and to the point, like, because I had seen so many matches in such a small period of time that nothing was popping me. It's like when masturbate 4 times in a day, the fifth time, it's not going to work. It's going to, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just, there was too much. And like, I was like, I saw Vikingo wrestle 3 times in one day. By the third time, it's like, yeah, I've seen this spot. And it's like, I shouldn't feel this way. This is like the cutting edge of pro wrestling, acrobatics. And I've numbed myself to it. I've increased my tolerance to such a point where I can't even get high. I've had that. And like in general now, I find myself, it's like a little difficult to focus sometimes on certain types of pro wrestling. So I have to like stop put my phone down and be like, I want to watch this. So let's watch it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the most difficult things for me, man. Cause I have that all the time now where, especially like that weekend, and I would go to a show with different groups of people and a bit, Vikingo comes out and I'd be like, they're like, oh my God, did you see that? And I'm just like on my phone, like, I'm good. I already saw it like 3 times.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good. And I don't want that. I don't want to be that guy. The same happens at like, bands that I love that I've seen a bunch of times. Sometimes I'll go to the show and I'll just be distracted. Like I'm going to go talk to someone or I'll go to the back or, and I should be just enjoying the show, but I'm kind of just like, I've already seen it, so much. And I'm not a part of it. Like I'm not in the band. I'm not part of their team. Like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? So it's hard to, I don't know, balance out enjoying something and then becoming so obsessed like we do,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally know what you mean. And I mean, that happened to me with metal. Like I got very obsessed with it exactly in the way that you were saying. I want to talk to these people. I want to know everything about them. I'm going to write about them every day, and then you get so obsessed where it's just not fun anymore. And I guess that's kind of the cycle. I get into something, I get really obsessed with it. I squeeze the sponge. There's no more juice. Throw the sponge away.
How about okay, so I asked you if you ever in a band or wanted to be in a band. Now that you're doing wrestling stuff, do you want to get into wrestling in that sense? Maybe not being a full-time wrestler, because like you said, you're turning 40. We're getting old.
Yeah, I'm definitely
42.
have no interest of taking spots or doing bumps, but I would love to do commentary or ring announcing. I always enjoyed like that kind of stuff. Again, like it's more broadcasting stuff. Yeah, that's like kind of like a small goal of mine. So it doesn't, like, I'm not saying I want to commentate, on AEW on TNT, which again would be great. But I don't think that's a pretty unattainable goal.
Whose
like
spot are you taking there?
Yeah. We were talking about with Delusional. Like I would be down with just an indie on Fight or the Premier Network. I want to get some reps in. Yeah. So I would love to do that. I've always dreamed about booking my own show, being a booker, but being someone who has followed the wrestling business for over 20 years now, I recognize how insane of a job that is, and I'm not sure I want the stress of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be great. I would love to be more involved in the wrestling business, and I'm kind of trying to dip my toe in it slowly because I don't want to big league my way in, because then I'm just going to get kicked out. Obviously you got to earn your position. I feel here it's a lot of showing respect and stuff like that, which I think people forget about. They're just stepping on toes.
Well, people forget because that is a thing that you learn in the pro wrestling industry, is that respect, that, not just discipline, but also the respecting of your position and whatnot. Because I feel the same way, in public with any situation where I feel like I need to earn my spot there. I can't just show up and like, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. Like, let's go. Like you can't do that. But I would say you could be a good on-screen talent, like a heel manager.
Oh,
Something
I would love that. But realistically, like I'm 6'5", I would dwarf whoever I'm managing. So that would just not make like
That's
I would have to get
true,
in the
huh?
ring, and I do not have any. I mean, I am willing. Like I did one day of pro wrestling training in my early 20s at the Doghouse in Queens, Long Island City, whatever you want to call it. It's where Homicide was a trainer, but he wasn't the one who trained me. It was one day of training, and it was the hardest day of my life. I just at the time, I mean, I don't know if like if I think I'm in better physical shape now because of the jujitsu than I was back then, but I vividly remember like leaving the training, and this was like a 4-hour training session. I couldn't even climb the stairs to get on the subway to go home. Like it was hard to bend my legs because it was so and just people who think that the mat is a bed are
Mm.
completely off. Like it is a very hard surface and it hurts anytime you hit it. And also anytime you get splashed or anything like that, it hurts. You feel it. It's held back, certainly, but there's impact.
Yeah, even if you
And
drop back for a fall, like it still sucks.
oh, back bumps are the worst. The
Yeah.
worst. Your shoulders are taking all the impact. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, it is funny though, because I feel like that one day of training, uh, kind of like ingrained in me how to properly take a back bump, and that has saved me from so many head injuries of just like slipping and falling on ice or anything like that,
Ah.
just because just you instinctively I've just
Tuck your chin.
ever since then just instinctively tucked my chin,
Yeah.
which is the most important thing. And also
Yeah, the hands
obviously
out.
spread your hands as wings to brace some of the impact.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I would love to do that. I love performing, uh, but that comes with its own anxieties, which is
Oh
like I
yeah.
said, something I'm dealing.
Yeah, I found I've been trying to get back into performing more just because I've noticed that when I'm performing, like when the moment comes, my brain kind of switches off. And I'm not saying like I black out or whatever. I get it done, but like I'm not thinking when I'm in that moment. I'm usually super anxious right up until the moment, and then when the moment comes, it's fine. Like I recently did Circle Six. You're familiar. You did some stuff with them. I did. They asked me to do ring announcing, and leading up to it, I was just sweating and like taking notes. I'm like, I don't know, am I gonna be able to do this? Blah 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 blah. But then when the show started, it was fucking amazing, and it felt so good to be able to do something like that. So I feel like maybe I'm missing an opportunity by not performing more. So that's kind of where I'm shifting my perspective in that sense. But yeah, I mean, I think you and I have a lot in common, and I feel like that's something that would do you well too, to just be a performer too.
I'm into it. I just
Yeah,
gotta get booked. Me and Dennis Stamp, we just gotta get booked.
get booked. Yeah, I've been also thinking about this stuff that I've been taking. Do you take anything to help you with your like mental like not health, but just like awareness or focus? Like, do you do coffee and tea or like mushrooms, for example?
Uh, I smoke weed regularly.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I mean, I drink coffee in the morning. I have an espresso machine, and then yeah, I love uh mushrooms. They've done a lot for me over the years. However, I'm at the point now where if it's anything more than a microdose, it's a very risky proposition for my head. But I
Okay.
have enjoyed microdosing. I especially enjoy microdosing going to shows. Like I went to see Meshuggah and I took a few like, you know,
Stems or
shroom chocolates.
oh, chocolates. Okay.
I'm big on the chocolates. Nice little, and it was such a great spiritual experience. It was like just the right amount, where I wasn't
Nice.
seeing anything visual, and I wasn't like not losing my, but like my mind wasn't going in overdrive. It was just very calming, and I was like very like feeling the music. So yeah, I'm all about expanding your mind. Do what makes you happy. In general, I've kind of started drinking a lot less. I don't, especially binge drinking. I've cut that out entirely just
Yeah, that's
because
bad.
it's a whole different type of hangover now for me.
Oh yeah,
Or
as you get
it's
older,
not,
ooh,
because it's not even a headache, it's just severe depression.
yeah, it's
And it's like, why
depression, headache, your body hurts. Like when I got into my
yeah,
late 30s, like heavy drinking had to stop because I would have to recover for 2 days. It would take me like two
yeah.
days.
I do one, maybe two drinks. Even the second drink is also, it's like, what am I doing? And then like after that, I have to like down a ton of water and eat just to ensure that I'll be okay the next day. It's a whole process now for me. So it's like, I don't do, I really enjoy smoking. Huge stoner. I love it. And so that's kind of my vice. And one thing that's been really fun when I first started smoking when I was 20, uh, it was still very like, there was kind of a taboo about it. It was still like, oh, you're a drug addict,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do, heroin next?
Yeah.
And I really do appreciate that, now a generation or two has passed, that now like alcohol is seen as the dangerous drug that it is. Whereas, but everyone's just like was trying to get me drunk. Like, and I'm like, no, I just want to get someone like, oh, well, you're gonna be a drug addict. It's like, no, I just want to chill out.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of the opposite. We're like, oh, you're drinking. We're just gonna be over here smoking, And I do appreciate how the culture has shifted in that sense.
Yeah, there's still people that believe that though. I have like those friends that I told you about that I talked to from high school. They're from Florida and they're very conservative and religious, and they think I'm a drug addict. They're like, "Oh yeah, Eddie's out there smoking mushrooms." I'm like, "Guys, we don't smoke them. We just eat them." But yeah, I've actually been cutting back on the smoking, man. Obviously had a lot to do with that lung infection I got, but aside from that, like I'm just doing it right before bed now. Before I used to smoke all day.
That's
It was
great.
like I've noticed that I'm not part of that whole not enjoying things. I kind of I've noticed I used to smoke a lot before concerts or before movies or whatever because I felt that it elevated the experience. But what I started noticing is that afterwards, like the next day, my brain is foggy and I felt like I didn't actually experience it. I was like, unless I had pictures or video, and then I found myself sitting on the toilet for hours just looking at the videos I took instead of being there and enjoying it because I was so stoned out of my mind that it was just kind of like a wash of colors and whatnot. And it just kind of feels like a dream instead of an experience that I had.
I totally get that, and that sounds like you absolutely should stop. And I've certainly, I've certainly told friends of mine when they express similar sentiments, like, yeah, why are you smoking? It doesn't sound like you're getting much out of it.
Yeah.
For me, my tolerance is so shot that I wish I could feel that way. It's just like a light buzz I get now, and like a cool, like a floaty feeling. But I feel, and in general, I feel I was one of the first people in my friend group to be a functional stoner. Like none of my friends when we were, on the come up of our of our drug experiment thing could keep up with me, I felt. So I don't know. I think, but at the same time, I absolutely know someone who I as I mentioned here, is like anxiety is the thing that I deal with. I'm sure the
Yeah.
pot that I smoke exacerbates some of it, but
Yeah, it depends on so I appreciate, like you said, the culture now. We can look at different strains and different
yeah,
milligrams and
that's what's
whatnot.
great. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like personally, like I stay away from sativas now, which is so crazy because in my 20s, I was like the biggest advocate of, like, when everybody was smoking Kushes and like, all this, I'm like, oh, I just want like a fucking haze. Give me a haze. And like nobody had sativas. And now I feel again, the culture has flipped because sativa at the time was the functional weed. But now for me, sativa like really triggers my anxiety and I don't even
Mm-hmm.
feel high. I just feel anxious. So I've had to stop. So I agree with you. I do love that weed has gotten to a place where you can actually go into a store and see what the strains are and have options. Uh, and we're not even talking like we've completely brushed over the inconvenience of having to deal with drug dealers.
Oh,
Like
dude.
which has just been like waiting 2 hours for a 20 bag or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Of
like
stems and seeds and
and
bullshit.
like what is it?
Yeah,
Like you have no idea. You just have to trust them.
yeah.
At least now, I actually have a medical card. I highly recommend, pun
Mhm.
intended. If you are a regular smoker, go legit, get the medical card. It's so much cheaper. And it's really nice. There's a nice dispensary there's a
They have
website I can
people
pre-order.
sampling you out. Like, just that one freaked me out.
Just,
When I went to Denver for the first time before moving to California and seeing a dispensary with like, sir, would you like a dab to taste? I'm like, what are you talking about? I drove here. Like, what do you mean?
Denver
dab?
was insane. Denver made me reassess, like, why am I paying this much for weed? Like, it's so cheap here.
Yeah,
It's
man.
insane. Like, ounces were like 150, like for the high end stuff. It was insane.
Well, I'm actually excited to see where we're going now with mushrooms. Like that to me, because I've done the heroic doses in the past, and those are kind of scary. But this whole like new wave of treating it like medicine, microdosing, and now there's like gummies and little things here and there, and not just the psychedelic mushrooms, but other mushrooms. Like I've been getting really into that. I'm not gonna end up like these dudes in the burlap sack jackets, traveling the world with a stick talking about mushrooms, but just the documentary that I saw about how we're so similar in terms of our physiology and the way our brain works. That
was this on Netflix? Fantastic Fungi or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's been really interesting. Really,
that was very fascinating. Yeah, and I'm glad that the science community has started to open up and it's legal to research the drugs. That was the thing with marijuana research, is because it's a class A drug, can't really do federal research. So like the laws are really behind the times now. It's absurd that stuff isn't legalized, and that I can't pay with a credit card at a dispensary because of this fucking dumb law. But we're getting there, and it is really cool. And I think also with ketamine and Molly, while I haven't really experimented as much with those, there's a lot of research now of like ketamine therapy, where you go in and get like a licensed professional walks you through a ketamine trip, and it's supposed to be very good and like help people with depression. And MDMA, as someone who has rolled many times in the past, I can tell you it did a lot for my self-confidence when I was at very low points. And so I could very much see the way it could work for people, again, under the guide of a medical professional. There's definitely research that should be done into it.
Absolutely. I mean, honest, when I did MDMA, like that was the best I've ever felt. And that's why I stopped doing it, because it scared me. I was like, normal life is not going to be good now. Like I can't, this is not going to be anywhere near as good. I need to do this all the time. But I didn't want to become, in Miami especially, we had that Ultra Fest, the big EDM festival. And that was like MDMA or rolling central. And I didn't want to become one of those people, or like,
yeah, moderation is very important. It's very easy to get sucked into the lifestyle of like the partying and whatever. And then, like you said, it's almost like a new obsession. And then you stop having fun and you're just doing it because it's just the pattern, the behavioral pattern that you're used to. So like, you don't want that to happen with this kind of stuff.
No. Speaking of, I'm going to drink this real quick. A little bit of business. I'm going to, hold on. Let me time stamp this. What do we got? 1 hour, 1 minute. I'll edit this out, but I do have to do some business. So, speaking of, I've been drinking this stuff right here, this little Magic Mind shots. I don't know if you've seen these, but it's got matcha and some nootropics in it, some mushroom stuff, some good stuff for your immunity. I've started the immunity stuff for obviously my infection that I was dealing with in my lungs, but then also I noticed that it's giving me a lot of focus, and it's kind of that like that focus that eating straight up mushrooms gives you. But it's none of that anxiety stuff that we were talking about. Like I've been trying to cut back on caffeine too, because I feel like caffeine and smoking weed, sativa especially, has been really triggering my anxiety and making me very like, I'm going into panic attacks to where I'm like, getting dizzy and like, I don't know what's happening. So I'm trying to pull back on all of that and get rid of some of the caffeine aspects. And this stuff's been really helping me. It
nice.
Keeps me awake, keeps me focused, and I'm really, really enjoying it. And what's good is that it doesn't taste like crap. So a lot of this stuff tastes like poison or whatever. This tastes like matcha tea, like green tea with a little sweetness to it. But check it out if you haven't. Try and get some Magic Mind in you. It's really good. Anyway, we've been talking for like an hour, and I feel that I've gotten to know you a little bit better. I've always known that you and I had a lot in common, but like I feel that we are very similar in the way that we think and we see the world. So I've really enjoyed, being able to spend some more time with you here.
Yeah, same.
Tell me what you have. Do you have stuff coming up? Is there anything that you're planning? Anything with Squared Circle Pit that you want to talk about?
Yeah, if you like, so Squared Circle Pit, the idea behind the show is exploring the intersection of rock and pro wrestling. So I'll have musicians on to talk about pro wrestling. I'll have wrestlers on to talk about their favorite bands. And yeah, I have some cool interviews in the pipeline. I have a ton of archives if you want to go to squaredcirclepit.com. Really cool. Some of my favorite interviews were I interviewed Corey Taylor a while back. I interviewed Triple H about his love of Black Sabbath and all that stuff. And I have a really cool interview with Edge for like over an hour where like Edge is a legit metalhead, like not to be gatekeepery, but there's certain wrestling guys that are kind of like tourists, like, oh yeah, they'll like Metallica, which I think is cool. Like if you tell me you like Metallica, we're friends. Right, but I'm just saying, like, there's some people who are like, oh, that's not a real metalhead. It's like, so I'm saying Edge is legit. He names like legit non-touristy bands. Although again, depending on your level of gatekeeping, because you might think Behemoth isn't, a touristy.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's up to you. That's up to the listener to decide.
I've met a few of those death metal gatekeepers who are like, Behemoth is pop rock. I'm like, get out of here, dude.
Actually, I just had a really cool interview with Rocky Romero, which I want to thank you for helping set up.
Rocky.
So yeah, lots of cool stuff in the archives. Check it out at squaredcirclepit.com.
Nice. And hopefully in a few, I would say 6 months to a year, we get to see more of you involved in pro wrestling. Just put it out into the universe. Because that's one thing, you mentioned that you're seeking something exciting, something to grab your attention. It usually comes at a moment where you're not seeking, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I absolutely agree. And I just imagine whatever it is I end up doing, I don't even know what it is yet because it hasn't hit me, so I'm sure I'll figure it out. I've done pretty well for myself so far. I'm not too worried.
Now, with the temporary retirement, like, are you like really retired? Like, are you not like, do you have a day job? Are you
I don't
working?
have a day job.
And you're able to sustain your, like, Metal Injection did that well that you're good?
Well, there was the site, like, I don't own the site anymore. So without, if you look in the footer of the website, Metal Injection is part of The Orchard, which is a subsidiary of Sony Music. So because of an agreement, I'll just say I'm doing okay. I'm okay for a little bit.
That's good. That's good. I'm not trying to pry too much.
Again, I can't really go into detail based on what I've signed, but I'm all right for now. I and I have time to figure out. I'm very fortunate to be able to have the time to figure out what I want to do.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I wasn't trying to pry. Just as a friend, I'm like curious. Like, you live in New York. I know that ain't cheap, so I want to make sure you're good. Yeah,
I'm doing okay.
That's good. That's good.
I'm doing all right, but bookings available. So hit me up. Any big promote. If Brett Lauderdale is listening, I'm available for GCW gigs.
There you go. There you go. Put it out there. I mean, that's all I've been trying to do lately is just put it out there. The things that I want to be a part of, let's just try and do them. Kind of like you said, I love the DIY mentality that you had to start Metal Injection and to do these things that you're doing. And that's the best way to do it, in my opinion, because some people wait for their shot. Most of the time, that shot doesn't come. You have to go grab it. Like, grab that brass ring, pal.
You have to, the only person that create opportunities for yourself is you. That's it. No one's going to help me out. That's what I realized. It took me a while with Metal Injection, but once I realized that, it really reframed my intentions.
Awesome, dude. Plug away how people can get a hold of you if they do want to book you. How do we?
I'm on all social medias. Rob Pasbani is my handle on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. RobertPasbani@gmail.com. Hit me up, folks.
Yeah, you finally switched it out of Rob Injection. I was there for a bit after the whole thing.
Yeah, it took me a while because that was my identity. That was my online identity, and I realized, like, I want to promote myself as a host and so I needed to get my branding more aligned with my name, I figured. But it was definitely a big step for me to have to give up that handle.
For sure, brother. Well, I'm glad you have, and that you're moving in a direction that makes you happy. I hope that, like I said, I hope to see more of you soon. Please, everyone watching and listening, follow Rob Pasbani on all of the things. And yeah, dude, we'll see you soon.
Yeah. See you at the show.
Cheers.